One of the things I did while I was in there so that I didn't become institutionalized was I tried not to define myself as as a a convict or people used to say there's another term, but like when they would address me, I would always be like, oh, you can call me Herc or Marcus Timmons or Mr. Timmons. Yeah. But I tried not to adapt it because once and for me, because once you kind of take on that, your mind shifts and you become almost like a person who's now that's your world. And the hardest part, because I've seen it when I got out with guys at the halfway house, I'm like, dude, he ain't gonna make it. Like they're trapped still. Yeah. They're doing stuff like the routine. They gotta set stuff a certain way, and if something's not the way, they they go back to prison mode and snap. And I've seen guys even in the gym working out, they do a couple pull-ups, do a couple curls, and they walk around the gym. I said, oh, that dude.
I do that all the time, dude.
Yeah.
Like I catch myself pacing like I'm in a cell all the time.
Yeah.
Like I do it all the time when I'm working out.
Yeah,
like it's I just do it. Like it's just I'll do a set and I'll do a lap. Do this back and forth like I'm in a cell. And the same exact steps that are in a cell. You can pace the cell. I do it all the time, dude.
I remember I had some gloves on and dude's like, the burners. And dude's like, man, those are prison gloves? I said, man, I gotta get some real gloves. Some black guy comes, he's like, man, what those, you working out like you in the yard or something, man? Yeah, I had to get rid of those gloves.
I wear gloves at work, but I don't wear them in the gym.
Yeah.
I've seen too many stories where they got these little guys. If you wear gloves in the gym, something,
Yeah, I wear the mist now, but I used to have the leathers because they were, working bars hot.
Out in the yard. Yeah. They took our weights in like 90s.
Yeah, they took they didn't have they had machines at the USP Lampa, but like all the other spots, they didn't want nobody getting big.
My routine now is pretty, it's disciplined. I guess because of prison. So I guess I have that mindset still. I get up at 2 a.m. I'm in the gym by 2:30. I work out for 45 minutes. I go to work. I get there a half hour early. I eat my chicken and my rice, or my rice and my, turkey. And then at 4 o'clock I work.
Yeah.
And then I'm off at 12:30, and then, either I look at a job or I study or, and then I'm in bed by 7 o'clock at night.
One of the things that I've seen as far as like when you talk about somebody who's like what your mentality or mine's like, when you get out of prison, you're grateful. So you're gonna work hard, you're gonna show up on time, you're gonna do a good job. And like when I see people complaining and just making excuses, like, dude, you don't know how well you have it. Yeah. You're not grateful. It's like, I look up sometimes, I'm thinking like, oh man, you look on social media and this person's, they look like they're living this life or this and that. And it's like, a lot of that shit is fantasy, but I have to be grateful for what I have and where I came from and what I've been through. And when I do that, it gives me much more pleasure and just like being able to share things with my wife and my dogs and my family, because, coming from where we came from, it's like sometimes you think it's like, wow, man, what is the life lesson? And a lot of people, I sometimes used to say like, man, I wish I could have learned it on the street. I wish I could have, man, you know what I mean? Why'd I have to go to prison?
I did Jubilant Media about a month, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And one of the questions was, do you think being a gang member made you a better person? Do you know the format of it?
Yeah,
where you go like strongly agree, disagree. Yeah. And I went to disagree. And a lot of the guys went to strongly agree that, being a gang member made them a better person. But what I was telling them, because, I told them, dude, you didn't have to go to prison to learn how to be a great businessman, to be a better person. You didn't have to learn loyalty by going to prison. You would have learned that in life as a regular person. You didn't have to be in a gang to do that. That was my answer to that, but a few of them agreed with that, and they thought being a gang member made him a better person.
Well, the same lessons you learn in there, which it can have violent outcomes, why couldn't you learn it on the street? You know what I mean? With a non-violent, maybe in a school setting or a classroom or dorm with your friends out of college or taking a trade somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of things like I realize that my words or my platform has more value in a lesson, but man, if I could have done that without having to spend over a decade of my life, like between juvenile hall and YA and fire camp and going to feds, I would have much rather have spent that time on the street developing relationships with people that weren't in that type of setting.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's not a setting that you want to volunteer to go into. And the people that, like you said, the people that work there, you know, I'm telling them, like, dude, you know, they used to say, you know, Big Herc, what you gonna do when you get out? I said, man, I got a future, man. I'm gonna do a lot of things. I used to have a vision board on my wall, and I'd have pictures of different places I want to visit and different things. And sometimes I'd be like, damn, he's up in my room for a long time. You know, I'd go look, and he's looking at my vision board. The CEO's like looking at, you know, and it's like, I dream, man. Well, you know, and it's like, to be able to dream, like right now, to be able to go to the beach, bro, it's free. To be able to go hiking or spend some time, and even if you're having a rough day, just be able to reset and know that you don't have to be in a cage to do it.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Don't.
You know, I mean, now since you've been out and, you know, being able to spend time with your wife, with your family, you know, what are some of the things that you look at now that you value differently and things that you've learned to appreciate since you've been out after going through that?
Dude, walking out my front door, going to the gym, being with my family, all that. You know, I never thought I'd be out again. You know, so every day for me is a treat, dude. You know, I don't want to say I've been lucky. I know that, you know, a lot of people, when they get out, I can't get a job, you know, I can't do this, or nobody will hire me. You know, that's not true in this day and age. You know, if you want something, you just got to go get it, dude. And you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to prove yourself. But, you know, I'll give you an example. I know you're going to bring this up, but I'm just going to bring it up anyway. So when I first got out, I got a job with ALBD Electrical. And how I got the job was through a homegirl of mine. She knew an electrician. He gave me the job. And the crazy thing is this company, I wasn't allowed to talk about that I'd been in prison. It was a big company. And then when something was going on, my boss would call my friend, and then my friend would call me and say, hey, you got to be more sociable with the guys. They're tripping on you. Or just little things like that, you know? And I kept getting pushed from foreman to foreman because they were saying I wasn't working, or they were scared of me, or whatever was going on. And, you know, that all blew over, and eventually they loved me, and, you know, and I ended up staying there for a year. But I left that company. And then I went to another, you know, worked with my buddy on boats, but then I went to another company, back to electrical, with Helmco Electrical. And when I went in there to interview, I brought my book, I brought my business card, and I told them, this is who I am. I go, I've been to prison, this is what I do, and I want it to be known because I'm not gonna hide it. I'm not gonna hide who I used to be. And they fully embraced that, you know, and they're a great company, and they're proud of me. And I work very hard for that company. I've gone very far in that company. I'm running little jobs already. I've only been, you know, an electrician for 3.5 years. And I'm already, you know, running little jobs. But that company has helped me a lot. And they've showed me, you know, gratitude and respect of my situation. And I couldn't ask for a better company to work for.
You know, it's funny, like you say that, because like a lot of times, I don't tell people, like, unless they see my show, what I've been through or what I've done. And then I'll be dealing with somebody, and then like 6-7 months, a year later, man, you didn't tell me, man, you robbed the bank back in the day. My kid was watching your video, and he told me, man, that he seen you on YouTube or TikTok, and he said this and that, man. Why do you tell me? I'm like, what? Why tell you? You know, I'd rather you know me, and then, you know, if that comes up, then cool, but I'm not gonna go around like, yeah, man, I blah, 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 I did this and that, because it's not like something I feel like that's defines me as just, that's all I am.
You know, for me, I don't care, I tell everybody. Like, I just think, because I look at it, like a lot of people, they don't want to talk about their past, but for me, I like to talk about it with people just to show them, like, dude, you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Especially the kids at work, I'm on them all the time.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I've been out 4 years. You could, you know, you're 24 years old. You could be dude, you're young. If you just apply yourself, work hard, you're going to make a ton of money. I know money ain't everything, but try to go to try to go to Walmart and buy a candy bar without some money and go up to and see what they tell you, you know? But these kids, man, a lot of these kids, man, that are doing electrical, they don't even understand, you know, how far they can go, man. You know?
Well, when I see kids in the gym, I see a lot of kids just like in general on different stuff. I'll talk to them, and then like, you know, if they're smart, man, I'm like, dude, check this out, and I'll show them something like from my channel. They're like, oh man, that's you, blah blah blah. And then to try to like, because a lot of kids, they think they're so tough. You know, these kids is, you know, everybody's a tough guy. Everybody thinks they're and it's like, dude, you know, I'm not saying I'm a tough guy, but as far as life and choices, you know, a lot of you guys think you're tough, but you get in a situation and you have to go do it's a totally different situation. I'm trying to tell you to avoid that. It's not all it's cracked out to be. They might be advertising that shit like it's cool, like these guys are in there and they're hanging out with their buddies, but dude, it's like there's more to it than that. It's not all it's cracked out to be.
Yeah, I have the opposite reaction in there in the gym. Like people won't even come up to talk to me because I got that look, you know? Like a lot of the times people will, when they do finally talk to me, they're like, man, you look, you know, like you look mean and stuff. And now that I talk to you, man, you're a nice person, you know, but you adopt a character in prison.
Yeah.
You that face where
well, it's like
don't
it's like a
mess with me.
Yeah, it's like I call it like almost like a mask. Like
it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's not. That's exactly what it is.
Well, you know,
it's a mask.
For me, I look for people in the gym sometimes, like, and I don't tell them about my past, but I look for people like the most unlikely person that would never like, and I try to crack them. And that's a game I play. Like even with my wife, I'll go places like restaurants and I'll see a guy, and this guy might look like he might be racist, and I'm like, hey man, that's a cool shoe. He look at me, and they'll start bullshitting. But I do it purposely because that's something like I've always prided myself on, like meeting people outside a comfort zone. Yeah. And I always tell people, like even from like where I grew up, I said, man, if you want to challenge yourself, go places where you'll feel like you're uncomfortable. I don't care if it's going to like Newport Beach at one of the high-end restaurants and go places where you get used to feeling like that. And once you get past that feeling, you can win anywhere. Because when you go into rooms and you start doing business, you start trying to create relationships, you're going to be dealing with people. And a lot of times people are going to try to judge you. Yeah. But if you can get past that and learn to articulate yourself and understand the conversation and move it in your direction, you're going to win every time, man. Yeah. But you got to get used to that. It's in prison is the most uncomfortable. Man, you go into a room, everybody get fucking naked, and you never met these people. You're butt naked. You're standing there. You got to go in a cell with a dude you ain't never met. I mean, dude, it's the most uncomfortable, hellish. You're sitting at a table trying to figure out where you're gonna sit at. For you, like, okay, you got to go sit over here. I got to go sit over here. I can't cut this check. Got to walk all the way around here. Yeah. Watch out for these dudes. They might be black, but they're not. I'm not from their hood. I'm from up north. They're from, it's all these politics. So it's like you're trying to survive that. And if you can make it through that and you get out here, it's like, come on, man. Yeah. You're done with this putz. This dude talking shit on a job, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, dude, this is like where I navigated from was like a fucking shithole. Yeah. So navigating out here, sometimes I just take a step back and like, wow, man, this is like, it's not as bad as people think. And it's like in the world and what we live in right now, especially with social media, it's a very low frequency. And they're trying to bring that frequency and they want people to be just very low, miserable, like angry, isolated. And that's the same shit they do in prison. Isolated, miserable, and you know what I mean, tension. And so, I don't know, man. I just try to like, I step back and I just like look at stuff. And like I said, I go to the gym, I see guys, I might see a Mexican guy, he's tatted up. And then I figure out like, okay, I'm gonna crack him by the end of the week. Yeah. Just to be what's like, bullshit. I see this guy. And that's just for me, it just keeps me, cause like people, we're all connected. And if we learn that like the whole separation thing is what keeps them controlling us. Yeah. And prison's all about control. It's like about, don't talk to that guy. He's a skinhead. Oh, guy, BGF, or this guy's a Crip, this blood, this dude, everything's separation. Yeah. But you get in the room, you get in the hole, you start talking to these dudes, it's like, dude, you got a lot in common.
Yeah, of course,
that's the difference. Yeah. So, I don't know. I just feel like, being able to communicate and understand one another is one of the biggest things that a lot of us, a lot of people in general have to overcome, because a lot of people they have these preconceived notions of other people. Yeah. Like you said, somebody sees your tattoos or whatever and they think, oh man, this guy. Yeah. You know,
I get judged all the time. Usually I walk around with tank top, shorts, my pro club shorts, and I always got a black tank top on.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in good shape. You know, I feel comfortable with that. But I get looks from everybody, and then they watch me get into my brand new truck, and they're like,
yeah,
I see it. Like,
Yeah.
wait, this guy's selling drugs.
yeah,
You know, but it's, you know, it is what it is. And I think that another thing that we have a problem with too is worrying about what other people think, man.
that's right.
If we spent more time mastering our craft, whatever it is, being an electrician, being a podcaster, you know, whatever it is, we'd be a lot better off. You know, I've been listening to this guy, and he's taught me a lot. So I'm actually going to really start focusing more on being an electrician and more on my business. And that's why, you know, like Ronnie, they've taken over. Ronnie and the Sandman, they're the ones getting the podcast, getting the interviews. But I was just talking to Ronnie on the way here, like, look, I have to really get into these books and master this to go to the next level, which is to be someone that can train kids and where my business is going to thrive. There's a lot of money in electrical, a lot.
Well, they said that's the next.
Dude, it's astronomical.
Yeah.
And I just want half of what's out there, and I'll be happy.
What advice would you give to young men out there who are trying to find their way, maybe caught up in the gang life or looking for direction? What would you tell them? You know, I always I really push the trades. I tell guys, if you're, like you said, electrician, mechanics, anything like HVAC, bro, you're going to be balling because AI can't do that.
Yeah, I'll tell them what I think. I think become an electrician. HVAC's, it's a good trade, but I'd become an electrician because we're the first ones in and the last ones out. And then you're always going to have work because somebody always needs a light socket. Someone always wants can lights. Somebody always needs a new panel. You know, I've made a lot of money, you know, in this already. Electrical is where it's at because it's needed all the time. You know, and then once you know how to do it and do it fast, you're not getting paid by the hour, you're getting paid by the job. Mm-hmm. Like most of the jobs, I'll walk in and say, yeah, I want this much. You know, well, I don't work by the hour. If you want your job done, if you want a terrible job done, you could get it done for cheap. But if you want your job done right to where it's going to last forever, where your house ain't going to burn down, I'll do it. Because it's a dangerous, you got to, you know, and even for the company I work for now, Helmco, you have to, and I'm just going to say this, man. It's very scary when you have 80 employees. I'm not the business owner, but I could just imagine the thoughts going through that person's mind, you know, because if you do something wrong on that job, you're responsible for 10 years. So if you don't put your wire cap on that neutral wire real tight, that could cause friction, that could cause a fire. You know, there's several, it's very difficult to find people that care about that care about the job they're doing. There's not, I know some of them, okay, I say, but dude, it's hard to find people right now, electricians, that really care about what they're doing and are worried, you know, okay, if I don't do this right, it's 10 years, somewhere down the road, it could cost the company millions of dollars. We had an incident the day before yesterday. I don't want to speak, you know, if we're on camera, I don't want to speak highly about it for the company, but, you know, it could have been avoided. You know, and it cost some, you know, it could have been avoided. It was one employee that shouldn't have done something, got fired, of course, but shouldn't have been doing that, and it caused a lot of problems. And you have to be careful, man, doing electrical because, you know, you could lose your life like that.
And what would you say as far as like kids out here trying to like still be involved like in the gang life and stuff. I mean, like there's so many more options. I mean, we were growing, it was different. I mean, but now like it's just so much out here.
I think it's very difficult because you got the internet that's glamorized it, rap music, all these different kinds of music. But I would tell these kids, man, that, and it's hard to get through it. You were a kid. When somebody's talking to you, it's hard to get through them. But in reality, the only people these kids are going to listen to is people like us that have been through it. Mm-hmm. Sadly to say, they're not going to listen to their parents. They're not going to listen to a psychiatrist. They're not going to listen to their teachers. It's up to people like us to be able to talk to these kids and be, look, man, it's a dead end. You're either going to end up in the shoe, you're going to end up RICO'd, or you're just going to be following orders forever, or you're going to end up dead.
Yeah.
That's it. I haven't heard of anybody that's made it through it without going to jail or prison or anything.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of life, if you want to be away from your family, if you want to sit in a cell and miss all the Christmases and miss all that, that's what being a gang member is. That's what being a criminal comes to. You're going to be away from your family. You're going to miss every Christmas. You're going to end up dead. You're going to be following orders. I can go on and on. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's all it is. There's no. You could say it's fun when you're out here doing it. It's all glamorous, but once you get caught, that's a wrap. All that fun's over, and now you're stuck in a cell, thinking about what you did, dealing with murderers, manipulative scumbags, pretty much, that do not care one thing about you. And most of them would take your life if they had to. If that's the way you want to live for the rest of your life, be a gang member, because that's what you got coming. To get that through to a kid, I don't know, it's like, that's something that, you could just talk to them about, but to really help them understand that, that's difficult, dude.
I think like coming from somebody who's been through the system, you're right, like somebody like myself or yourself, like it has a lot more weight, because I know when I was first getting involved or looking at the streets, there were some guys who had got out of San Quentin, and these guys are like street dudes, and they, if they would have been like, look, man, get your little ass from up here around this shit, man, what are you doing in school? You should be doing, I would have respected that, because these are G's, these are OGs. Yeah. I would have looked at that, and that would have probably been it for me going over there, because of who it came from, and the fact that, hey man, your mom's working hard, just, this is not a life for you, man. But you have to, you have to talk in a language that kids understand. But like, thinking that when people like, oh man, this is the shit, they're selling you, like you said, they're selling you a dream, man. And for the most part, I look at it like the reason why they do glorify it is because prisons, they need people to go there. They can't advertise like McDonald's. Prisons got to have commercials. What are the prison commercials? The music, the lifestyle, because those by default, when you do something and it results in you getting arrested, it takes you to prison, and they helps keep the cells full. If their cells are empty and people are doing the right thing and working and being productive and this and that, prisons there would only be a handful of them. Or they'd be like the prisons in like those places like Denmark, where they have TVs and go to work every day. It's like a regular house, So I look at like our system basically depends on the young people, younger and younger now, getting corrupted in order to justify them getting in trouble and to go into the system, because they got to keep the stock.
Not only that, it's just not, in California, that's just going down a rabbit hole, but in California, they're not helping by letting everything that's going on in California happen as it is now. They are, there's just, it is way above us.
Yeah.
It's way above what we're trying to do. You got two sides fighting each other. Which one's right and which one's wrong, I couldn't tell you. I know what I believe. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got their own beliefs. But, what's going on in California right now and is terrible. And if it's going to change, I don't know. But you got all these kids in this area that we're in right now. This is gang-infested area right here. Hollywood, LA, Ventura, all these places, man, are just You know, all these kids are going to school with gang members.
Yeah.
All these kids' families were gang members. All these kids' grandparents were gang members. Not all of them, but you know, you couldn't go to one house on this street in this area, and I guarantee you one person in that household was in a gang, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's like how do they call that? It's like the history of this place.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how you're going to change that.
Yeah.
You can only save, you know, the people that, you know.
Well, unless you provide, like, I look at, like, the resources, and one of the biggest things I look at, like, bringing trades back to the schools.
Yeah.
Trades back to the schools, creating, you know, these after-school programs where it creates value among the people in the community. I went to talk at Locke High in South Central. That school, you had to get buzzed through 2 gates. It looked like a mini prison. Yeah, they had a cop car out there. The top floor are people or young kids who are on the verge of going to juvenile hall. So those kids like are 1 step away from lockup. The bottom 2 are regular, but it's just the environment for learning is not conducive to anything.
And then they're not teaching kids. They're not teaching kids valuable information. They're teaching kids nonsense.
Yeah.
They're teaching kids nonsense, man.
Yeah.
You know, they're not teaching them.
No life skills.
They're teaching them history that's probably all fake. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're teaching them their agenda, whatever their agenda is. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But, you know, again, that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, I mean, dude, look, I mean, the whole, it's almost like, for me, like, and I talk with my partner a lot, when I started really getting in depth into, like you said, reading different things, and I'm like, and I would just sit back and reflect, like, damn, dude, I've been duped. I was sitting in prison because I had some OGs give me some stuff to read. I started reading, like, where's this book at? Where'd you get this? Like, and like, information is so important because, like you said, if you've been taught the wrong thing, by the time you learn the right thing, it's like you done made so many mistakes along the way to get to the right thing. So it's like, you know, having access to information, because once you see information, it's not necessarily like some people are smarter than you. They just have the information. Yeah. Information is the thing that separates those people living in Crystal Cove and the people living in Santa Ana.
Yeah, like college, man. College is worthless pretty much.
Yeah.
It pretty much is. You can learn all that stuff, but, you know, you're going to pay 70, whatever, how many thousands of dollars to go to a college?
$60,000 a year,
And what they want to teach you is their agenda, which is, a lot of it is false. If you got to go to school to be a doctor, that's different. You're going to go be a doctor or a lawyer or accountant, okay, something like that. Yeah. But, you know, a psychologist, they just want to put you on meds. They just want to medicate you. You got all these people on meds now. They've been on them so long they can't even get off of them. You know, they'll start shaking, you know. And then when they start shaking, they give them a med to stop them from shaking. You know, and we can go on and on.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's almost younger and younger. Not to get too much in depth of that, but it was funny when you say the meds. I remember, like as a kid, I'd never really heard of anybody being on meds. Yeah. And growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, you just went and played more. You were outside soccer, put you in every sport, you know. And the only time I ever really seen somebody on meds, when I went to juvenile hall, I seen it, I'm like, what is that? And the other kids like Thorazine shuffle. They were giving kids Thorazine. And Thorazine would knock your ass, you turn you into a vegetable. Yeah. You'd be shuffling, you know. But there was never, I didn't even hear of it, like ADHD. Like kids with like skateboard, you were active. So a lot of that energy was burnt out, you know.
I was on Ritalin as a kid.
Ritalin was the other one they put,
Yeah, I was on Ritalin.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the only thing, like you didn't see a lot of that. And like you said, now, I had never heard of a young person being depressed. I had never heard of like all that stuff. I never heard of kids growing up when I was in 8, I never heard of it.
Yeah, you get a hangnail now and they put you on meds, you know?
Man, the young people, man, your parents, that's the crazy part. It's like you said, when you start them young too, and it's like by the time you get in your 20s, your mind is just like whacked out. So I don't know, you gotta be careful out there, man, protecting the kids. And just like, you know, creating opportunities, man. Yeah. You know, is there anything you want to share about like something crazy you've seen in prison that, you know, like people would be like kind of like blown away, or something like just a situation that maybe you came across that might be kind of like.
I remember this one. I've said one before on the Connect, but I'll say another one that I remember. This was probably in '97. is at Old Corcoran, and this older guy came walking up to us because Marcelli was the shot caller on level 4 yard. And he's like, hey, Marcelli's crazy. I got to get out of there. So, all three of us went up to the CO and we're like, hey, hey, we got to get this guy's cell moved, okay, yeah, we'll do it after dinner, So account time's like 4 o'clock, and we're in the cell, and then we hear the cops yelling, yeah, get down, and we look over, and it's that, that old man where his cell's at. He's an old lifer, been around a long time, just a good old man. And that J-Cat had him under the desk and popped both of his eyes out with a spoon.
God!
I'll never forget that, dude.
God!
Yeah, and that dude had a life sentence, and all you got in there is a TV when you're doing
God!
Yeah, dude, and
Oh,
and
my
he,
God!
Yeah, pop both of his eyes out, man. I've never seen that guy again, obviously, but either one of them. But yeah.
Ooh, man, yeah, there's some.
Some of them, there's a lot of them, but I'll
Yeah.
just say that one, right?
Yeah.
That was terrible, That's the kind of stuff that happens, though, like you just don't know, like you said.
You don't know
who
who you're
messing
doing.
with.
Yeah, who you messing with?
Who you're messing with. But you could spot him, like he probably he's seen it in dude's eyes, like, hey, this guy's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, I got to get out of there.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm old, I can't defend myself. He's an older dude, can't defend myself, and now, hey, you can see it. There's dudes that I'll look and I see him and I'll be like, I won't even look at him, or I'll just stay away from him.
Yeah, avoid him.
Because they mix them in, and they're dangerous, dude. And those J-Cats, man, they'll hurt you, dude.
Yeah.
Especially if you get stuck in a cell with one,
Yeah, I remember a dude. He was he's one of the kind of weird dudes, and he's kind of dude like he start talking, and then you think like you look up like, man, I gotta keep an eye open at night because you never know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like dudes like you said, kind of especially in county jail coming in, and dudes like coming in, you don't know they're detox or whatever or whacked, or maybe he did time, he's trying to get back so he can get some free meals and shit.
Yeah.
It's a lot of elements in there, man. It's just like it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
Is there any anything you want to leave our audience with as far as?
Yeah. So my book, Orange County: The Dark Side, is on Amazon. If anybody wants it, it's a biography about my life. It's a good story. It's a good story to to let people read, to understand that you can come back from anything, man. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Ronnie Harrell and the Sandman, From the Inside Out, with Ronnie Harrell, Chris Curtis, and the Sandman. It's a podcast that we started. If you want to hear some amazing stories of recovery, of people that have actually, been through it in prison, you can watch that podcast.
And what's your social media for everybody?
OC The Dark Side, 8083.
Okay.
And that's TikTok and Instagram.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll make sure we'll put it also in the description. And yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your story. Like I said, the whole premise of this platform is not to glorify prison or to make it seem like it was cool that we did all this time and now you're OG and now you can. It's about really life lessons, man, and coming back from life lessons a better person.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose I started this. I was like, man, what can I do when I get out to kind of help put a positive spin on something so negative,
Yeah.
So, hey, man, thank you for coming on Fresh Out.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, man. And you guys know how we do it. Big Herc 916, Fresh Out, my man Chris. You know how you do it over there, man.